Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Carsen Taite, and I'm here with these illustrious authors. We have Angie Williams, Sheri Wohl, Leigh, and Sam Ledel. So everybody's going to do a reading from their most current release, and we're going to start with Leigh. Leigh, take us away. Everybody else, if you'll cut your microphones, I'm going to bring Leigh up on screen.
I'm going to be reading from my November release, Too Good to Be True. It's a story about a divorced mother who goes to her niece's wedding and has a hookup with a younger woman, Madison, who it turns out is her the social worker at her son's school, and it's their romance from that point on. I'll be reading an excerpt from pretty close to the beginning of the book. They've just met at the wedding, and Jen has rescued Madison from a kind of run-in with her ex. Jen scanned the tent. Across the room, she spotted Madison, sitting in a group of other 20-somethings laughing. A flicker of not quite desire, but definitely not platonic feelings, stirred inside her. Madison glanced over and caught Jen staring. Taking a bigger sip of her drink than she had intended, Jen choked as it burned its way down. When she looked up, Madison was gone. Shit, Jen mumbled, wiping down her chest with a cocktail napkin. Slightly embarrassed, she grabbed her drink and found a set of chairs facing the ocean. She silently laughed at herself for getting flustered by a woman's gaze across the room. But even as she did that, she felt disappointment at a missed opportunity. There you are. Jen glanced up at a shadowy figure backlit by the reception's lights. The voice sounded familiar, but she'd only heard it once. A shiver went through her body that had nothing to do with the temperature, and she tilted her head to get a better look. Still a little off balance from her coughing fit, her comeback lacked her usual finesse. Here I am. Madison took the chair opposite. I wanted to thank you for rescuing me. Rescuing, like she was some knight in shining armor. Jen preened a little, and then before her mind caught up with her, she said, does that make you a damsel in distress? Oh, fuck, was she flirting? Madison smiled, and a hint of playfulness emerged in her tone and posture. For the right person. I'll keep that in mind. Okay, what was she doing? It wasn't the scotch. She hadn't consumed any more than she would at a work function. No, it was a mix of pride and the flattery coming from an attractive woman, because Madison was attractive, more than a decade younger, but still attractive. Okay, just go with it. She held out her hand and said, I'm Jen. Madison's hand was rougher than Jen was expecting, but warm, and she looked right at her as they held hands. Jen smiled and opened her mouth, but whatever flirty comment was about to come out died on her lips when she heard her mother's voice behind her. She groaned. Madison pulled her hand back. What? Jen's shoulders slumped. It's my mother. Jennifer, what are you doing lurking in the shadows? Jen saw the exact moment Madison's purple hair registered by the slight curl of disapproval on her mother's lips. Isn't she a little young for you? I mean, really, how old are you? Madison answered without missing a beat. Old enough to know what I want. Jen choked on a laugh. She liked this woman. She set her drink down on the lawn and held out her hand. You're right, Mother. I am lurking. Come on, darling. Let's dance. Jen's hand was warm, her grip solid, confident, as if she didn't care who saw her. Even now, Madison expected Jen to let go once they were safely out of her mother's range. But she didn't. Instead, she slipped an arm around Madison's waist, picked up her other hand, and led her into a dance. Madison's surprise must have shown because Jen paused and loosened her grip. Is this okay? Her poise and confidence both alarmed and attracted Madison. Jen was totally her type, older and self-assured, and that alone would lead to trouble. She nodded and squeezed Jen's hand. Yes, the song was soft and slightly up-tempo. You're a good dancer, Madison said. Jen twirled her and pulled her back in. Years of etiquette lessons in my youth, it always felt awkward until I realized I was trying to lead. Madison laughed, and the music shifted to another old standard with the same tempo. Jen showed no signs of letting go, so Madison kept dancing. It felt strange to follow. She was usually the taller woman and often the one who led, but Jen had a few inches on her even without the heels. Jen kept eye contact, drawing Madison in with her attentiveness and presence. Delighted to be in the spotlight, she relished Jen's open admiration and appreciation. She couldn't remember the last time she'd danced with another woman. You're not so bad yourself, Jen grinned at her, and her brown eyes crinkled when she smiled. Ballet in grade school, theater in college. A drama major. Jen held her close, and Madison missed a step. Jen caught her effortlessly. All too aware of the woman holding her, she mumbled an apology and cursed herself for getting distracted. The music morphed into another, slower, more romantic song. Jen continued to guide her at a slower pace. Their bodies came closer but didn't quite touch. Madison could smell her perfume, something subtle but distinct. It suited her. More like drama adjacent. I dated a theater major. Jen chuckled and Madison felt it throughout her body. She suppressed a moan, imagining that velvet sound surrounding her in a more intimate environment. It would be so easy to turn their physical familiarity more intimate. Without thinking, she pulled Jen against her. Jen looked down as if startled, and then a slow smile spread across her face. Her hand settled on Madison's hips. Giving into the fantasy of something more, Madison slung her arms around Jen's neck. They moved with the music, but focused on each other. Jen's hands were sure and deft, felt feet smooth and precise. When the music stopped, she stayed in Jen's arms. Jen's eyes stayed on hers, flickering briefly to Madison's lips. Madison leaned in. A raucous dance beat thundered through the speakers. Madison laughed and leaned in to shout, "Total buzzkill." Jen rolled her eyes and stepped away. "Totally. Come on, let's get a drink." Madison followed her off the dance floor and across the lawn to the outdoor bar, watching the way her swips swayed in that black dress.
Excellent. I also chose a dancing scene, so I hope the rest of you did as well.
We were just talking about that.
No, that was excellent. I really enjoyed that. Great insight into that attraction there. All right, so next up, let's go with Angie Williams. Angie, you want to
Hello?
come alive and thank you?
Yes. Okay, so I was this close to doing a dancing scene. Leigh and I talked about it before, and then I thankfully I did another one, so we'll kind of mix it up a little. My book is Last Resort, and in the book, one character wants nothing more than to be in a relationship, and the other character has come out of a bad breakup and doesn't think she's ready to dive back in yet, doesn't think she really needs to be in a relationship. But her family harasses her about it a lot, and so she agrees to go to this lesbian resort for a week, like a dating resort for a week. And there she meets Reese, and so she's very resistant, for them to be together, but there's an undeniable attraction between them. So I did another reading earlier this month that was the meeting, and I want to do something different. So this is a little further in the book, and this is every evening they have dinner together, and then they have ice cream, then they go lay on the beach and chat. And so this is one of those chats that they have. Okay. Katie soaked up the warmth of Reese's body and felt herself relax into her solid chest. "You're so warm. You may never get rid of me. I'm okay with that." Katie was afraid to look up at Reese, so she buried her face even further into her broad shoulders. "Tell me a story about little Reese, and it has to be embarrassing." She felt Reese shake with a laugh which made her smile. "Embarrassing, huh? Only if you promise to do the same. One embarrassing story for another. Deal." Reese rested her chin on top of Katie's head and pulled her closer. "Are you warm enough?" Katie sighed and gave Reese's middle a squeeze. "I am. Now, stop stalling, woman. I need a story and make it a good one." Katie closed her eyes and luxuriated in the way their bodies fit perfectly together. She'd always been a very tactile person and had spent hours cuddling with friends, but there was something about Reese's broad shoulders and strong frame that made her feel safe. "Man, you're a tough crowd," Reese said. "Okay, let me think for a minute. My entire life is one embarrassing moment after another." "I find that hard to believe. You seem like a cool cucumber." "I've got you fooled. They must have put something in those sprinkles you put on your ice cream. They are magic. Now, no more stalling. Entertain me." "Wow, okay. No judgments, right?" "No judgments." Katie noticed Reese's shirt had pulled up, exposing the smooth flesh of her stomach, and she fought the urge to slip her hand under the hem of the fabric. She had no idea why she felt such a strong need to stop herself. She'd been with several women since Amber, and she'd never resisted to get physical with them. She was upfront with them on what she wanted, and they had willingly agreed to keep things casual. Who's to say Reese wouldn't be equally interested in something casual? Katie knew that wasn't what Reese wanted. I can't believe I'm going to tell you this story. Katie gave Reese's middle a pat for encouragement. Come on, you're working this up so much it better be good. I'm not promising good, but it's definitely embarrassing. Perfect. Out with it. Okay. There was a time many years ago when my little sister stole my girlfriend. Max stole your girlfriend? That's shitty but not embarrassing, Katie said. Well, Max was 6. Katie burst into laughter while Reese covered her face. Holy crap, Reese. I'm going to need all the details. The little vixen's name is Anna Jones, and she's the daughter of our father's second cousin, Brenda. Wait, Anna's your cousin and she was your girlfriend? No, well, technically, yes, but a distant cousin. And since I was 8, Max was 6, and she was 7, the relation part didn't really mean anything at the time. I was madly in love with her, though. We used to swim at the pool at her house pretty much every day during the summer. When someone in San Francisco has a private pool, you take advantage of that shit. Katie nodded in agreement. It is a rare find. They had an awesome tornado slide that spit you out into the pool, and Max and I used to dare each other to slide down in ways I hope my children never attempt. It's a miracle we aren't both dead. Anyway, I decided that since we liked each other so much, we should probably be girlfriends, which would inevitably lead to marriage. I explained my logic to Anna, and she agreed. That tracks, Katie said. 8-year-old logic is pretty flimsy, so we were girlfriends, but we knew enough about relationships to know our parents wouldn't understand how serious we were. We decided to keep it all on the down low, holding hands out of their eyesight and stealing little kisses under the tornado slide. I bet you were freaking adorable when you were a kid. Reese smiled at the compliment, which sent tingles down Katie's spine. She really had a great smile. In the meantime, Max was watching my budding relationship with Anna and decided she'd like her to be her girlfriend too. Katie laughed when Reese rolled her eyes. I think I see where this is going, Katie said. Yep, Reese answered. So one day when I had to go to the dentist, Max had a little talk with Anna and told her it only made sense for them to be girlfriends too, since Max and I shared everything and all. She agreed, and just like that, they were dating. I can't believe she was so easily convinced to cheat on her one true love. Reese gave Katie a sad puppy dog face. Poor baby, Katie said. Yeah, poor me, Reese frowned. So my girlfriend and Max were having a grand old time holding hands and making future plans when they found themselves under the tornado slide. Innocent little Max had no idea this was the kissing spot, so she was shocked when Anna pulled her face toward her and laid one on her first kiss. Katie laughed till tears fell from her eyes. That was the point where I came home from the dentist and found Max kissing my girlfriend under the tornado slide. An animal, Katie added with amusement. What did you do? She asked, wiping the tears away. I decked Max right in the mouth. You what? Katie asked, sitting up to look into her face. You punched your baby sister? Well, yeah, she kissed my girlfriend. I don't regret it one bit. Katie collapsed on the blanket, laughing. I had no idea you were so quick to resort to violence. I've matured a lot since then. Now I'm more of a lover than a fighter. Katie smiled. I bet. Okay.
Kissing cousins.
Yay! I'm from Texas, right?
Well, I'm actually from Mississippi, so I'll just let that ride.
Even worse.
Excellent. Thank you, Angie. So next up, let's hear something supernatural. Sheri, are you there? Sheri here?
Unmute mic.
Excellent. Read us a story, Sheri.
All right. Well, I'm going to read from Avenging Avery, which is also a November release. And coincidentally, the release date is my birthday. So I thought that was very nice of Bold Strokes to do that just for me. So anyway, you wouldn't think that a 300-year-old vampire and a Stevens County deputy sheriff would have much in common. But as it turns out, they're both chasing the same evil vampire that created a great deal of heartache for both of them. So the real question here is, are they going to be able to get to him before he gets to them? So the scene I'm going to read for you is outside a fire that Issa, the 300-year-old vampire, just happens to have started. And Jenny confronts her. The shadows were dark and deep as she moved away from the activity at the smoldering house, wrapping around her as though she attempted to hide beneath a cloak of invisibility. The vamp might have been eluding humans for a long time, but if she thought she could hide from Jenny, she would soon discover her mistake. I know you're there. Jenny stopped close to the edge of the property, where the landscaping ended and the forest began. In this part of the country, nature and civilization existed in close proximity, and she liked it. The vampire, who'd been talking on a cell phone, put it in her pocket and turned to face her. Jenny almost audibly caught her breath. Fortunately, she caught herself. An experienced law enforcement officer and vampire slayer did not publicly display emotion. She wanted to hate this woman, as she'd hated every night creature she'd encountered in the years since Avery's death. Yet this one, this beautiful one, had an aura about her that she'd never encountered before. To allow herself to be rattled wasn't okay, except she just couldn't help it. Everything about her felt off. The unmitigated evil that she'd experienced in every previous battle didn't exist here. And that didn't seem possible. And there it was, just the same. Not the time to be giving the vampire the benefit of any kind of doubt. Act first, analyze later. A good rule of thumb, except once again, she arrived unprepared. The call that interrupted her trip brought her here without the specialized tools required to go up against a vampire. They remained at home. Silently, she berated herself for not taking 5 minutes to run to the house and grab her weapons. Regardless of what else happened, she vowed that this would be the last time she arrived anywhere in this county without her special weapons. I'm not hiding from you. Then why stand back here in the dark, all dressed in black? Looks like hiding to me. I didn't want to get in the way of the firefighters. Bullshit. Believe it or not, I don't care. Yet you cared about that. She inclined her head in the direction of the house, or what remained of it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be skulking around back here watching it burn. Always have liked a good bonfire. Are you always such a smart ass? A smile gusted across her face, there 1 second and gone the next. Or at least that's what Jenny thought she saw. Kind of hard to be sure in the dark. Yes. Damn it! She wanted to smile too. Fortunately, she caught herself. No way would she allow this woman to get under her skin. What the hell? A woman? Not hardly. She stood toe to toe with a vampire, not a woman. Why then did it seem so difficult to lump her in with the other vampires she tracked? The ones she'd used her very special weapons on? For just a second, she closed her eyes and remembered what had brought her to this path to begin with. She touched the neck of her shirt and felt the tiny vial of ashes through the fabric. Avery. As her name rolled through her thoughts, a chill rippled down her spine. The perfect bucket of water to throw on her odd emotions when in the presence of this vampire. It gave Jenny the boost she needed. With her eyes still closed, she asked, "Who are you?" Issa. Just Issa. Surprised that she actually got an answer, Jenny opened her eyes. God damn it, she muttered as she stared into empty darkness.
So I just read a review of this book, and I love revenge stories with the element of supernatural.
Yeah, me too.
The enemies to lovers. I love it. So thank you, Sheri. Let's see. Sam or me? Sam, you go next. Tell us a story.
All right. So today I'm going to be reading a scene from Broken Rain, which is the sequel to Daughter of No One. They are part of the Odium trilogy, which is a fantasy adventure series. And it follows two women, Princess Aurelia Diremaid and Jastin Cypher. And in the first book, they meet and they have a connection. The princess is immediately smitten and falls for Jastin and isn't hesitant about expressing her feelings toward Jastin. But Jastin is much more reluctant. And in book 2, in Broken Rain, the two of them, along with Rigo the elf and Corin, Jastin's best friend, they go on this journey to find a cure for Jastin's sister, who is very ill. So the scene I'm going to be reading from is from one of their campsites. Jastin and Rigo have just come back from a successful hunt. Jastin placed her hands on her hips, standing proudly as she scanned their camp. The sun had set, but the fire burned brightly. A few fairy nests shined in the branches around them, providing a soft glow of light. 3 logs had been arranged around the fire, a setup Jastin recognized as Aurelia's signature addition. She sat on one now, wearing a look of shock, her eyes wide as she stared at their catch. Aurelia? Jastin tilted her head. When she didn't answer, Jastin moved closer, stepping around the fire. Aurelia continued to stare at the fallen buck, even as Corin and Rigo began to scrape off the fur. Her face paled. Aurelia, are you all right? She sat next to her and nudged her knee. Finally, the spell broke and Aurelia turned, though she still wore a look of surprise. Forgive me, she glanced at the buck. We eat venison quite regularly in the castle. However, I fear that despite the many occasions I've enjoyed such a meal, I have never actually seen the preparation process. Jastin followed her gaze and laughed. Oh, princess. Aurelia blushed. You should know by now there are many things I'm not privy to. She looked back at Jastin, who was still chuckling. She took a deep breath, eyeing their food warily. Perhaps I could learn? Jastin admired her gusto. Aurelia's face was a light shade of green, and as fun as it would be to watch her attempt to skin their food, Jastin thought of something else. She placed a hand on Aurelia's knee, where her pants were torn and a wide scar peeked through. I have a better idea. Why don't you help me apply some of your magical herbs to my shoulder? It's itching more than I'd like it to. Aurelia's eyes filled with gratitude, and she smiled widely. I can help with that. Did you happen to find any more calendula? I'm afraid not, but we can look tomorrow. Very well. She reached for Corin's satchel and dug through it eagerly. I'd like to find that onion, if possible. I've noticed a few along our trek, but forgot to pluck them. She inhaled sharply, her nose crinkling. Though if I don't get a proper back soon, I may simply turn into one. That would make things easier, wouldn't it? Jastin laughed. You don't smell anything like an onion. She leaned close and gave an exaggerated sniff. Well, not completely. Aurelia's mouth fell open. You. She shoved Jastin's knee, making her laugh harder. In reality, all Jastin could smell when Aurelia was near was orchids and the warm, musty scent of the earth, a smell Jastin was fast growing fond of. Before she could stop herself, she placed a strand of hair behind Aurelia's ear, running her fingers the length of the smooth tresses as she gazed at the soft curve of Aurelia's jaw before wandering to the fullness of her lips. I think you are the most beautiful woman I've ever known. The words surprised Jastin as much as they seemed to surprise Aurelia. Both sat silent, stunned by the confession. Aurelia's eyes softened, and she dipped her chin. Shall we proceed with your shoulder? Jastin swallowed, running a hand down her messy braid and wishing she could drench her face in water to calm herself. Why did she say that? She wasn't supposed to feel this way about Aurelia. Moments like this, when she was completely at ease, made Justin want to tell Aurelia everything. Tell her about the noble sacrifice in the caves. She wanted to tell Aurelia that it might be her blood that was needed to claim the cure. Moments like this made her head swim. Unable to manage the torrent in her mind, Justin stood. I'll just grab my flask. Quickly, she fetched it from Corin, who was already carving the meat free thanks to Rigo's quick work. When she leaned down, he muttered, any day now, Jazz, and threw her a grin. Hush, she replied, splashing him before returning to Aurelia's side.
Awesome. That was great. Thank you very much. Tell me which book in the series this is.
Broken Rain is book 2 in the series.
Hold up all the books.
I don't know what's the right order. This is Daughter of No One is book 1. Broken Rain is book 2.
So who else can I call on? Oh, it's just me left. I stalled as long as I could. All right, so I'm going to read next, and I'm going to read from Best Practice. So this is the third book in a series. It's the Legal Affairs Romances. Some people call it the Sexy Lawyer Legs series. Okay, just me calls it that. And it's about three best friends. They get fed up with working for big law firms where they are, and they go out on their own to form a small boutique practice in Austin, Texas. And this installment features Grace Maldonado. She's one of the law firm partners, and the younger sister of one of the other partners, Perry Campbell. Campbell's story was told in Practice Makes Perfect. So not a lot of setup for the scene. It's kind of far in midway in the book. And in this scene, Grace and Perry have just left a difficult dinner with Grace's parents, and they're on their way to a local bar to decompress. Are you ready? Grace was standing close, and just like outside the restaurant, Perry was transfixed by her beauty and the warmth of her smile. Don't ruin this moment by overthinking it. She looked down at Grace's outstretched hand and shoved her second-guessing away. Friends held hands all the time. No big deal, right? She grasped Grace's hand in her own. Absolutely. The bar was as packed as it had been the night before, but everything about the atmosphere was different. The top 40 pop mix had been replaced by club-style techno beat, and a machine pumped in a haze of white smoke. Other women checked them out as they walked through the crowd with equal glances of approval and jealousy at their clasped hands. Perry cast a sidelong glance at Grace, who seemed not to notice the attention they were drawing, but she reveled in it like the nerd who'd been asked to the dance by the prom queen. She pointed out a table where the occupants were leaving. Grab that and I'll get us some drinks. Grace made her way to the table, and Perry took a moment to watch her go, allowing herself to imagine what it'd be like if this were a real date. And then she remembered that she'd suggested this outing so Grace could decompress from dinner with her parents, not for her to exercise her dream date fantasies. She ordered a couple of Manhattans from a femme young bartender who didn't bother to card her. You're a lifesaver, Grace asked when she returned to the table. She took a deep drink from her glass. She fished the cherry out and popped it in her mouth. I usually let these sit in the bottom of the glass, soak up all the bourbon, but tonight I don't feel like delaying my gratification. From your lips, Perry thought. She murmured her approval and downed a healthy dose of her own drink. You want to talk about it? What's there to say? I love my parents, but I'll never be first to them, or even second. Sometimes I wonder if they had children because it was politically expedient. You know, you have to draw in the family people, and how can you do that without having some of your own? She followed her remark by with a half smile, and Perry shook her head. Nope, no covering up the pain. It's okay to be mad at your folks. I mean, if you can't be mad at your family, who can you be mad at? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Sure it does. The people you're closest to are the ones most likely to get on your nerves. It's true. I don't make the rules. Noted. Grace pointed toward the dance floor. I don't want to talk about my parents anymore. Let's go dance. Perry struggled to look like it was perfectly normal that she and Grace would take the dance floor together. She raised her glass. Bottoms up. Grace clinked her glass to hers. To a good time. Cheers to that. Perry downed the rest of her drink, enjoying the warm slide of whiskey as it burned its way into her stomach. Are you ready? Grace put her glass down and reached into her pocket. 1 sec. She pulled out her buzzing phone and held it up. This might be my folks. She stared at the screen, grinned, and typed a quick reply. What? Not the parents. I figured, judging by the expression on your face. Good news? Grace set the phone down on the table, face down. Nothing important. Perry inclined her head, certain Grace was hiding something. Then why do you look so giddy? She grabbed the phone and turned it over just in time to catch an incoming text. And like a love-struck teenager, she disregarded the fact she was completely violating Grace's privacy. She stared at the phone, wishing she'd never seen the conversation between Grace and Danica, but not wanting to let it go in case there was more. There wouldn't be more, of course, unless she handed the phone back to Grace so she could continue the conversation. She met Grace's eyes, but couldn't quite read the expression there. You know, she's really not right for you. And you know that how? Perry didn't have a good answer for the question. Her teenage self might have said something silly and romantic, like, because I'm the one for you. But she didn't believe in soulmates and lifelong loves and all that crap, because good things didn't last. And whether or not that was a byproduct of her parents' death or not, it was true. So why did her adult her have a problem with Grace being with someone else? She handed the phone back to Grace and stood, pointed at the dance floor in a challenge of sorts. I'm going to dance. She strode away, willing Grace to follow her into the haze of smoke and hard-hitting beats. She hoped would distract her from asking questions she couldn't possibly answer. She edged through the crowd, found a spot near the DJ booth, less crushing than the rest of the room, and surrendered to the primal beat. Movement equated to freedom, freedom feeling trapped in Austin, from the being back here brought to life. Freedom her conflicted feelings about Grace. A tap on her shoulder, and she went still. A moment later, Grace was standing in front of her, moving in slow motion to the bass pounding from the nearby speakers. Her movements appeared cautious at first, like this whole dancing thing was brand new, and Perry slowed her rhythm to meet her pace. They were completely in sync when the music changed from hard-pounding techno to a gentle ballad. Out of the corner of her eye, Perry could see the first date couples peeling off the dance floor, leaving lots of space for lovers and drunks to sway to the slower pace. She refocused her attention on Grace and found her staring hard with a smoldering look in her eyes. Emboldened by being the center of her focus, Perry stepped closer into the circle of her arms. Time was suspended as they stood with almost no space between them. Perry reached her arms around Grace's waist and pulled her even closer until mere inches separated their lips. Had Grace's lips always been so full, so lush, when she crushed on her years ago? Had her deep brown eyes held this same combination of mystery and allure? How in the world had she been able to resist kissing her for so long? Why hadn't the courage of her youth catapulted her into seizing the day? If she couldn't do it then, could she do it now? She leaned in and lightly brushed her lips against Grace's, then drew back and locked eyes, looking for permission for more. The consent was quick and clear. Grace slid a hand up the back of her neck and pressed her close. When their lips met again, the connection was electric, swift and sure. Perry laced her tongue with Grace's and groaned at the off-the-charts pleasure that pounded through her entire body. As the kiss deepened, her arousal soared, and she wondered why. Why had she waited this long to make the first move? That's best practice. You're all mute, so I see you clapping. Everybody come back.
There was cheering too.
Thanks, y'all. So, audience extraordinario, if you have questions, please type them in the Q&A box. But we have some time, so let's go around the room and everybody tell their most favorite thing and their least favorite thing about writing a book for publication. And Leigh, you started us off first for the reading, so I'm gonna hit you up for that.
Oh, I get to listen, everyone, and then I get the first question. Okay.
I know, right?
What's the best thing about publication and the worst thing?
Well, about writing mostly, not, but you know, like I'm talking about like writing a book that's going to be published as opposed to just noodling.
I think one of the best things is actually hearing that people like it, and it's interesting to hear how it impacts people too sometimes, because when it leaves your hands, it's not yours anymore, and you're like, oh, I had never thought of it that, oh, I see, it's this way. Okay, yeah, so you're too close to it. I'm sort of a private person, so I think it's harder for me to be public. So I'm like, that's more of but obviously I don't mind it too much, because I did choose the publishing route instead of just, hanging out in the beautiful but wonderful world of fanfic, so.
Is it more public than you thought it would be?
Yeah, actually it is. And I believe Aurora Ray said last night the hardest thing is coming out as a lesbian romance writer. And that's been interesting at work. So, yeah.
You work at a university, so
yep.
Yeah. Do you get flack for being a genre writer, or no?
No, because I'm staff, not faculty, so I'm technology, so I don't get that, literary poo-poo. Yeah.
Fancy pants stuff. Great answers. Sheri, how about you?
Okay, so I think what I like the best is being able to write what I want to write, which for me is a combination of the lesbian romance and the paranormal. It makes me happy. And the fact that other people like it too makes me happy. So, although like you, Leigh, people at work were kind of going, what, you're writing what? I'm like, just read it. You'll like it.
You'll do very differently.
Well, I work in a very, very traditional place. So
works amongst the law.
Yes, I do.
And justice.
Basically 3 decades. So, I wore the suits. I said all the right things. And, although I've been working at home for the last 1.5 years, so the suits, goodbye. Only when I have to go back to DC, and then I'll put on proper clothing, but that's it.
I think proper clothing has taken on new meaning. So
yeah. And my closet is way emptier than it used to be. I'm loving it. I'm really digging it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, I don't know that I said the thing I dislike, but I guess the thing that surprised me the most was the marketing part of it. That when you first start writing, you think that it's just writing a book and then there you go, read it. But there's like 1 million times more to it. And I have had to learn to be outgoing, because that's not my natural habitat.
Yeah, but you've done some Comic-Con kind of things, and you put yourself out there.
Comic-Con is kind of cool because those are my peeps. They get me, I get them. I feel very comfortable at Comic-Cons. Very comfortable.
Okay. So the key to getting out there, if you're not into it, is just to find a niche.
Yes, it really is. Yeah. But I still do it all, and I have learned to be okay with it.
Yeah.
Taking some work. I think I'm okay with it. I haven't heard people saying, God, she's really weird.
Yeah, none of that. Sam, how about you? Favorite thing, least favorite thing?
About writing a book for publishing?
Yeah.
My favorite thing, kind of what other people are saying, I really enjoy when I'm somebody who reads some of the reviews, and so when I see a reader they've gotten what I was trying to say, they connect with it, that's such a cool feeling. And selfishly speaking, just being able to hold these books in my hand is the most amazing feeling. It's a dream for so long, and that it's real, it's still kind of surreal to me. And the hardest thing, I would probably agree with the marketing aspect. I'm also not a very extroverted person, so I'm still learning how to promote myself on social media and how to like Sheri said, put myself out there more. So maybe I'll take the advice and go to Comic-Con one year, and might be able to find a good space there for myself. That, and also just writing the blurb, writing the back of the book is so hard.
Yeah, word. Angie, how about you?
This is gonna sound like I'm just kissing everybody's butt, but really, like one of my favorite parts is the family, like the BSB family and the Lesfic family, and just like being part of this community is so special, especially right now, just with everything going on. It feels special to be connected to people and people who, I mean, we live in an extremely liberal area, but it's just nice. There's like a, family that's gives you all the warm and fuzzies. And I'm terrible at marketing too, so I don't like that, but I really don't like deadlines. They totally suck. It's like, you really have to kind of be in that space to write. And then when you have this looming deadline and you have to sit down and write, that's hard.
Oh, that's funny. I probably wouldn't write a word if I didn't have a deadline. Like, that's the only thing that gets me to be in that space. I'd be like, oh, I'm just gonna think about it a while longer. I'll get around to writing it someday. So yeah, I think my favorite part is, I'm gonna just jump off what you said, is the connections that I've made, and the, not just fellow authors, although, I've made some really fantastic friends, but readers, and being able to be out in the world and meet people, because the writing is such a solitary thing, and I'm not an introvert, so sitting at a desk by myself is not my thing. And so getting to go out in the world and meet people and go to Pride events and all kinds of different conferences and meet and talk to readers is my jam, and I really enjoy it. And I'm always amazed at how many people will show up to things, and it's so fantastic. It's such a great feeling. And I think my hardest part of writing for publication specifically is having to write that blurb, because I don't really plan ahead, and so having to write a synopsis, because it's for publication, it has to be written far in advance of when the book comes out, and I generally haven't written the book when I'm writing the blurb, and I don't really know what's going to happen, and so I need to write something that encapsulates it enough to make you interested in buying it, which will remain true throughout the time till it's published, but also kind of be vague enough to give me some wiggle room. So, and do it in 150 words or less. So,
Yeah.
So it'll fit on the back of the book. And that I find to be excessively challenging. Mm-hmm. So we've got a few audience questions. One of them, are you a plotter or a panster? And for those who don't know what that means, a plotter is someone who forms out their plot in advance, and a pantster is someone who flies by the seat of their pants even if they're not wearing them. So, Sheri, how about you?
Oh, I'm a total panster. I mean, I have the basic story, and I know, who my main characters are, but how it all evolves is definitely by the seat of my pants.
Awesome. Sam, you alluded to this earlier, I think, about series writing.
Yeah, so series writing, I quickly learned, needs a lot of plotting, though I think part of me still kind of fights against that, and I think, okay, I know what I'm gonna eventually get to. Let's just see what happens in between. So I have kind of the same. I have the general big plot points that I want to hit, and then what the characters do on their way there is, we'll see what happens.
Awesome. A little bit of both. Mm-hmm. Angie, how about you?
I'm an absolute plotter. I mean, I have all of my chapters worked out, and with paragraphs, like Leigh knows, I sent to her book. Like each chapter has, I have a paragraph at least with some quotes in it. I need a plan. I need a list.
I find that very disturbing. See you, I might steal your notes.
Yeah.
So You better hold on to those. Leigh, how about you?
I used to be a panster quite a bit, but I think I've been moving toward plotting, partially for deadlines and blurbing, but also for me, I'm like, I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of rewrites. So that's what pantsing to me is, a little like, writing a rough draft, rough outline, really. So yeah, it's evolving. So I kind of, I'm a little of both. And like Sam, I know the big points and I know the characters, so I kind of know where they're going. But yeah, I'd like a discovery sometimes. So.
Yeah, I'll be stealing both your notes. So another question we have, does the thrill of holding your books in your hand change for those of you who are using pen names? And so I guess, when I'll start with this one. When I was a kid, I always wanted a book with my name on it, my name on the cover. But I do write under a pen name because I started writing when I was still practicing law on a regular basis. And though, on the first page of Google, both names would come up because I have so much, legal crossover in my books. I just never wanted my clients to think, oh, she's writing about me, because I wasn't. But I just never wanted them to feel some discomfort. So I did pick a pen name, but I've never hidden who my real name was. But it still felt just as glorious to hold that book with the name that I picked, on the cover. So you can talk about, if you don't write under a pen name, you don't have to even out yourself if you don't want to, but how did it feel to hold the book in your hand for the very first time? And I'll start with you, Sheri, because I think it's been the longest for you.
Yeah, and I write under my name. And I did that intentionally. Of course, I don't have clients, so, and I do work in the law, but I'm like, this is the freedoms that we're supposed to have. So that this is what it is. And so, yes, it was very, very exciting. And Lewis, of course, was my dad's name, and he passed away before I was able to publish the first book. So I wanted to honor him, which is why I use Lewis.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sam?
So Sam Ledel is actually a pen name for me. It's very similar to my actual name, but yeah, I mean, the feeling doesn't change for me. It's still just as exciting. Ledel is sort of a family name, so it's still, I have that connection there. And yeah, it's still just as wonderful to have that book in my hands with Sam Ledel written on it.
I love hearing how people came up with their pen names. So it's neat a lot of people do honor family names. I think that's great. Leigh, how about you?
I also use a pen name, and they are also family names. So, and yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, I also, Leigh is my father's name as well. So yeah. So yeah, no, it feels like my name. So.
Angie?
I use my name. I thought about it a lot. My wife uses a pen name, and so we kind of talked about it. And but I was like, I don't have my name on there.
Yep.
For those who don't know, Angie's married to a little-known author named Megan O'Brien.
She uses her grandmother's name, O'Brien.
That's very cool.
I forget sometimes that that's not her name.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah, it's when you start to answer naturally to your pen name, then it's a good fit. So.
Well, I was a fan before, so I knew her before.
That's
and then I've like misspelled her real last name, Bellinger, and I'm like, I'm not doing good.
Oh no.
Okay, so this question is directed. Oh well, you know what? We're out of time. But that was great answers, great readings. Really appreciate y'all. Readers, thank you so much. Everyone who attended, we love you, and we couldn't do this without you. And thanks to everyone for tuning in today. We appreciate you.